Meantime, we are rejoined now by Stanley. He's a Bloomberg Best for overall economic forecasting. He joins us on the phone from Stamford, Connecticut. And Stephen, we lost you a second ago, but you said despite all the bad weather, things are sort of day-to-day normal business in Connecticut for you.
Unbelievable, yeah. I mean, my house is a mess. We don't have power, and, I came to work this morning and everything was normal. Most people are here, so we're trading the markets and doing what we always do.
All right. Well, you're back to work. I'm sure there'll be some hit to productivity for those people who haven't been able to dial in or get to the office themselves. But that's sort of the least of the economic worries at the moment. This is supposed to be a very big data-filled week. Did Ben Bernanke hint to you on Friday, hint to us, that perhaps the data is going to get better in the near term?
Well, that's certainly something the Fed's been talking about. I think it's interesting. They have been relatively optimistic compared to the private sector forecast all year. And, of course, the first half didn't turn out nearly as well as they'd hoped. But they still seem to have hope for the second half, as do I. And certainly this morning's numbers were helpful in that regard, with a good start to the quarter for consumer spending. I think, I don't think they're quite as close to a move this year. There's been a lot of parallels between last year and this year in terms of the Jackson Hole speech. I don't think they're quite as close to a move this year because I don't think they're quite as worried about the economy. And then obviously on the other side of the mandate, the inflation situation is vastly different than it was a year ago.
Well, you seem a bit more of an optimist. There are so many Washington watchers who tell me that they viewed Bernanke's speech on Friday as sort of a "I'm out of bullets and please help me."
Yeah, that's not. I'd say that's a pretty fair assessment in some ways. As I started to say before, one thing that I thought was quite telling is that he didn't give a specific list of options. If you go back to the Jackson Hole speech last year, he gave 3 specific things that the Fed might do, and they proceeded to do the first one of those 3, which was quantitative easing. And, similar dynamic this year at the semi-annual monetary policy testimony in July. He gave 3 specific options. The first one was effectively extending extended period, and then they did that at the following meeting. He didn't give a list of options this time, which leads me to believe that there's really not a consensus at the Fed for what the next step should be. And, I think we can infer from that they're probably a little further away from actually doing anything, because they just don't see any good options out there at this point.
Well, if the problems and the solutions lie in Washington, on the fiscal side here, as Ben Bernanke hinted, Stephen, does it make a difference to you to have the new chief economist be a labor economist? I mean, we're looking at Alan Krueger waiting for Senate confirmation, but potentially taking that office. We know he likes infrastructure spending. He's in the past that he wants to raise the minimum wage. How hopeful are you that he's going to have a real impact here?
Well, the head of the Council of Economic Advisors typically doesn't have a huge impact on policy. I mean, he'll certainly be at the table for the discussions, and I'm sure we'll have some impact at the margin. But we're in probably a once in a generation, or maybe even once in a lifetime, ideological struggle here between the left and the right. You've got vastly different prescriptions for what the government should be doing to fix the economy, and I think the battle lines are well drawn. I'm not sure that shuffling the personnel in the administration is really going to change things. The bigger question is how this battle goes between the administration and the Republicans in Congress, with obviously one side wanting to do the sorts of things that you suggested, and the other side wanting to cut taxes and lighten up on regulation. And that's really, I think, that big battle, the next front of which will be this committee. That's really where the action is.
All right. Thank you so much, Stanley, Pierpont Securities. Good luck getting your house back in order
Thanks,
in the wake of Irene.